Gabrielle. Good morning, everyone. This is on the killing of a journalist in the occupied Palestinian territory last month. More than 6 weeks after the killing of journalist Shireen Abu Akleh and the injury of her colleague Ali Sammoudi in Jenin on the 11th of May 2022, it is deeply disturbing that Israeli authorities have not conducted a criminal investigation. We at the UN Human Rights Office have concluded our own independent monitoring into the incident. All the information we have gathered, including official documentation from the Israeli military and the Palestinian Attorney-General, is consistent with the finding that the shots that killed Abu Akleh and injured her colleague came from Israeli security forces and not from indiscriminate firing by armed Palestinians, as was initially claimed by the Israeli authorities. We have found no information suggesting that there was activity by armed Palestinians in the immediate vicinity of the journalists. In accordance with our global human rights monitoring methodology, our office inspected photo, video, and audio materials, visited the scene, consulted experts, reviewed official communications, and interviewed witnesses. According to our findings, on the 11th of May, soon after 6 a.m., 7 journalists, including Shireen Abu Akleh, arrived at the western entrance of the Jenin refugee camp in the northern occupied West Bank to cover an ongoing arrest operation by Israeli security forces and the ensuing clashes. The journalists said they chose a side street for their approach to avoid the location of armed Palestinians inside the camp, and they proceeded slowly in order to make their presence visible to the Israeli forces that were deployed down the street. Our findings indicate that no warnings were issued and no shooting was taking place at that time and at that location. At around 6:30 in the morning, as 4 of the journalists turned into the street leading to the camp, wearing bulletproof helmets and flak jackets with press markings, several single, seemingly well-aimed bullets were fired towards them from the direction of the Israeli security forces. One single bullet injured Ali Sammoudi in the shoulder, and another single bullet hit Abu Akleh in the head and killed her instantly. Several further single bullets were fired as an unarmed man attempted to approach Abu Akleh's body and another uninjured journalist sheltering behind a tree. Shots continued to be fired as this individual eventually managed to carry away Abu Akleh's body. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, continues to urge Israeli authorities to open a criminal investigation into Abu Akleh's killing and into all other killings and serious injuries by Israeli forces in the West Bank and in the context of law enforcement operations in Gaza. Since just the beginning of this year, our office has verified that Israeli security forces have killed 58 Palestinians in the West Bank, including 13 children. International human rights law requires prompt, thorough, transparent, independent, and impartial investigations into all use of force resulting in death or serious injury. The perpetrators must be held to account.
Thank you very much, Ravina. Are there any questions for Ravina on this issue? And yes, Lisa Schlein.
Morning, Ravina. I just want to get a confirmation from you as to whether there has been any response to your findings from the Israeli authorities.
Thank you, Lisa. The Israeli authorities have conducted an investigation, but unfortunately, they have not yet conducted a criminal investigation. They issued a statement. Sorry, I'm just looking it up now. They issued a statement continuing to cast doubt on where the bullet came from. And they say that it is still not, it has yet to be determined whether. Here it is. The IDF investigation clearly concludes that Ms. Abu Akleh was not intentionally shot by an IDF soldier and that it is not possible to determine whether she was killed by a Palestinian gunman shooting indiscriminately in her area or inadvertently by an IDF soldier. This is what they've said, but they've failed to launch a criminal investigation to determine exactly what happened. There have been several investigations conducted by media, by other outlets, by the Palestinian authorities, and there is this monitoring from our office. This monitoring from our offices is consistent with many findings out there that the shots that killed her came from Israeli security forces. So we are calling for a criminal investigation to determine clearly what happened.
Lisa, you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I just want a clarification. So the information you have is not an investigation that your office itself has carried out, but I mean, there have been investigations and reports from a number of media outlets and so forth. So is it mainly a compilation of the information that you've gleaned from these sources, plus kind of eyewitness views from your own monitoring team?
No, thanks, Lisa. We don't call it an investigation. We call this human rights monitoring because we don't have the capacity to conduct a criminal investigation to establish intent. What we have done, however, is we've done our own work. We've inspected photo, video, audio material. We visited the scene. We've consulted with experts, and we've looked at official communications. We've interviewed people who were also on the scene when Abu Akleh was killed. So this is independent monitoring from our side and consistent with our methodology that we use for human rights monitoring in many other country situations. And based on this very rigorous monitoring, we find that the shots that killed Abu Akleh came from Israeli security forces and not from indiscriminate firing by armed Palestinians.